y'all doing today? It is March the 1st, 2024, and we are in a new month. Like I was saying the other day, I think we only have 9 more days until this daylight savings time is over, and we're going to go ahead and spring forward another hour, and I'm really looking forward to that. I'm sure you guys are too. When I mentioned that the other day in the video, I had a lot of people comment and say they're ready for it to be over with as well. They're ready for the longer days, and I definitely can agree with you there. It's when you have these really short days like this, it can be rather depressing. And one of the things I've talked about over and over again, is that a lot of us that are alcoholics or addicts, there's usually an underlying cause for the reason, and one of them is depression. Is a rather large percentage of us that are depressed or either having severe anxiety. And just the short days can really add to that, and can just, it can really make the depression worse. I was actually just speaking with a friend of mine just a little bit ago, and he was talking about how, he's been depressed lately, and, especially on a day like today. He lives here in the same town I do, and was talking about how, it's rainy outside, and just the weather, just, that he's battling depression right now. And I understand these rainy days like this and the short days can really add to it, especially when you're just stuck in your house and you can't really do much. Getting outside and being able to get out and walk around and things like that, that really can help improve depression. I really believe in exercise and getting out, and it doesn't have to be a whole lot. Just getting out and walking for a little bit, even if it's a half a kilometer or whatever it may be. Just getting outside and just doing a little bit really can help get your head out of the darkness and bring you into some light. Just getting out there and get your blood pumping, and it really makes you feel better about the day. And one thing about exercise as well, and I don't want to sit here and just keep talking about this, but while I'm on the subject, when you get out and you walk around and do a little bit of exercise, you get that blood pumping, and it helps expel some energy. And one of the biggest problems that we have, especially when we just start quitting, or we just quit, getting sleep can be rather difficult. And getting outside and doing a little bit of exercise really can help improve your sleep at night. Walking around, running, whatever you may be able to do, but it it just helps go to sleep at night. And if you've wore yourself out a good bit, you're going to be rather tired. And avoiding a lot of caffeine, a few hours before bedtime is another big one. And I know there's a lot of us that drink coffee and things like that. We're substituting basically. And I tend to do the same thing. I drink a lot of coffee throughout the day, and sometimes I do make a mistake and I'll drink it too late, and I end up staying up way too late at night because of my caffeine consumption. But I'm trying to work on that now. I really try to stop consuming caffeine after 12 o'clock in the day, and I don't mess with it anymore after that, because I just want to go to bed at a decent time, and I go to bed rather early. I'm usually in the bed by 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, and I'll lay there for a little while, but I'm usually asleep by about 9:30 at night. And that was not the case before I stopped drinking. I would stay up until all hours of the night. Back then my work schedule was a lot different and stuff like that, but I was always up till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. I would stay up and I would drink until I just passed out, and I just always felt bad. And I'm sure there's a lot of you out there that can, testify to what I'm talking about, and, can relate with me. And after you stop drinking and start getting to bed at a decent time, you just feel so much better. But anyway, not to keep going on about that, I just wanted to touch on that while I was on the subject. But today, I want to talk about varices. And varices are one of those things that comes along with liver disease. And I've touched on this in another video not too long ago, but today I'm just going to talk about the varices and what they are, what to look for, and what they can do about the varices, and if you have any symptoms, you really need to go get checked out immediately. So what varices are is that when you start to develop fibrosis in the liver, your liver starts to get hard, and your liver processes, it filters all the blood in the body basically, and all of the blood that comes from your GI. So your stomach, all that stuff, your spleen, your pancreas, your intestines, all that blood runs through the portal vein and into your liver. And as you start to have liver damage, the liver starts to harden, and the liver cannot let the blood pass through the way that it did before you started having damage to the liver. And what ends up happening is imagine your portal vein being a hose, and that hose goes into the liver. And a normal liver, that hose goes into the liver, the blood passes right through, no problem. And I'm sure there's a little bit of back pressure, because the blood has to pass through it and get filtered. But a normal healthy liver will let the blood pass right through. But as the liver starts to harden, that blood cannot go through there at the same rate that it did before, which starts to create back pressure. So imagine if you have a hose and you push it up against something hard, and you turn the water on full blast. That hose is going to eventually just start to expand. And that's what's going on with your blood vessels when you start to develop varices. You end up with what's called portal hypertension. And that's basically just high blood pressure in your portal vein. And the portal vein runs right into the liver. So what's going on, and all that blood that's coming from your organs is trying to get into your liver, but the liver's hard and it's dense, and that blood just can't pass through quick enough. So it starts to create back pressure, and that back pressure starts to create pressure on your veins. And what can end up happening is, just like if you took a hose and put it up against a wall or something like that, that hose is going to start to get pressure in it, and it's going to start to expand. And what can end up happening is that those blood vessels can burst if they get enough pressure on them. And when they burst, well, you'll start to bleed internally. And I'm telling you, it's not something that you want to have to deal with. And I'm sure there's a lot of you out there who have dealt with this before, and it's very, very, very scary. There's not a whole lot that they can do. There's not a lot of symptoms. There's not a lot of symptoms for varices. It's not something that you're going to, have. There's not a lot that you can pick up on as far as the varices are concerned until you start to bleed, unless you go get checked out. So what they can do, if you are concerned about having varices, you can talk with your doctor, and they can do an endoscopy, and they can go in there and they can take a look. Most of the time when you end up with varices, they end up in the esophagus or in the stomach. And they can do a quick endoscopy, they take a camera, they go down your throat, and they'll go down they'll look through your esophagus, and they'll look in your stomach, and they can see those varices, or those blood vessels that are enlarged. And there's some things that they can do in order to address it, but one thing that you need to do first off is they need to see if you even have varices. So what would you want to look for if you think that you might have varices? Well, one thing is if you start throwing up and you throw up blood. If you throw up blood, you need to go to the hospital immediately. Go to your emergency room. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Go to your emergency room as fast as possible. This is a very serious problem. If you're throwing up bright red blood, then it's probably somewhere in your esophagus or in your stomach. It's going to be very close. Or you can also throw up things that look like black coffee grinds, and I've spoken about that. And the first time that I ended up with varices that were bleeding, I didn't throw up red blood. I was throwing up the coffee grinds. And I threw up coffee grinds for quite some time. And I've talked about this, but I wasn't sure because I was so sick. I was so nauseous and just sick and ill. I was drinking some soda thinking that would help settle my stomach. And you guys know, like ginger ale or like a Coke or a Sprite or something sometimes can help alleviate the nausea. And all I had at the house at the time was some Coke, and I was drinking some of that, and I thought that the black coffee grind looking stuff was the Coke that was in my stomach that I was expelling. Um, so I stayed home. I didn't do anything about it, and I continued to bleed internally for days until I finally ended up in the hospital. And the only reason that I went to the hospital is because my wife came home and found me in the bed, completely covered in vomit. And it was the black coffee grind vomit. I'd gotten so ill that I couldn't even get out of the bed and throw up anymore. And that morning, before my wife left to go to work, she had gotten me a trash can and put it beside the bed. And we were thinking that I just, was sick. I had a stomach virus or something like that. And I didn't tell my wife that I was throwing up black stuff. I kept that to myself. And she just thought, I probably just had a stomach virus. And that's what I was hoping was going on with me. But I hid the fact that I was throwing up black stuff from my wife until the day that she came home from work and found me laying in the bed, completely covered in black vomit. It was all over the sheets. It was all over me. I was so weak I couldn't even lean over the bed anymore, and that shows you how sick I really was. I had bled so much internally. I had absolutely no energy. I could not lean over the bed to throw up anymore, and I just started throwing up on myself. And when my wife came home and found me in that state, that's when she was like, "You're going to the hospital right now," and that's when I went. And when I ended up in the hospital, they checked my hemoglobin, and my hemoglobin was very, very low. I think it was like 4 or something like that, but it was very, very low. And they were really concerned about it. I had to have multiple blood transfusions during that time. I think they did like 7 or 8 bags of blood. And, it's just part of it. And eventually the bleeding stopped. I went through that whole hospital stay, and I've talked about this, but that first week when I was in the hospital, I don't really remember anything from that period of time. They put me through a medical detox, and the drugs they were administering to me, I was so out of it, I don't really remember anything at all. I think one of the things they were giving me was Ativan. I might be wrong, but I think that's one of the things that they were giving me, and I just didn't know what was going on during that period of time. But after that first week, I kind of, finally started coming to, and I think they started pulling the drugs and weren't giving them to me anymore, and that's when I started knowing what was going on. But what ended up happening after that is I was using the restroom. I had stopped throwing up, but I was using the restroom, and I did have black stools. So that's one of the things, well, 2 things that you need to be aware of. If you experience any of these 2 things, please go to the hospital and do it immediately. If you are throwing up either red blood or either black coffee grind looking throw up, that is blood. And you really need to go to the emergency room immediately. That's probably variceal bleeding. And also, if you are defecating either black or tarry stools, that's blood as well, and you really need to go and go to the emergency room and get that checked out. A lot of times when you're going number 2 and it's black or tarry, that means it's a lower bleed a lot of the times, or it could be the blood is being digested and going through your intestines. So that time that I had the varices bleeding, that kind of addressed itself. They gave me the blood transfusions. I made it through it, rather okay, and came home. And then months later, I got sick again. And then that time I threw up, it was completely red blood. And when I went to the hospital, I went to the emergency room. It was like a remote emergency room that I went to. It was kind of like a satellite deal. I went there, I got checked out, and they said, "You're in the middle of pancreatitis again." And then they sent me to another hospital. And when I got there, I ended up throwing up 500 cc's of just blood. And then after that happened, I had uncontrollable bowels during that period of time. And I was messing myself while I was in the hospital. And it was black. And it was blood. And the bleeding had gotten so out of control that they decided to send me to another hospital. And I went to a larger hospital where they did an endoscopy, and that's when the doctor looked in there and said that it looks like hamburger meat in your stomach. My stomach was just covered in varices in my esophagus. But one of the things they were talking about doing, which is something that they can do for you if you're experiencing that, is that they can go in there and they can put bands onto those varices to stop the bleeding. And it's basically a rubber band that they place on it. So they'll take the varices and then they'll put a rubber band around it and pinch that blood vessel off to make it stop. From what I understand, though, that can be quite dangerous sometimes, because when they block off that varice, that can lead to back pressure somewhere else. And from what my pancreatic doctor told me, because they were discussing doing so one time when I went to go see him, that it can lead to blood clots in other places like the lungs and things like that when they do those kinds of things. So that's another thing to be careful about, and it's something to consider. But like I said, if you are throwing up black coffee grinds or have red blood in your throat, go to the hospital. That's probably varices that have burst. And if you are going number 2 and it's black or tarry, that is as well probably. And you really need to get that addressed. They need to check you out and make sure that you're okay. And there's things that they can do. Like I said, they can give you a blood transfusion. They can go in there and possibly place those bands in there. And one of the things also they can do for those varices, if you have been diagnosed, and a lot of times too, what they'll do is they'll either do an MRI or a CAT scan with contrast, and they can take a look at all of those veins inside of you. But one of the things that they can do to help alleviate that portal hypertension, which is just high blood pressure in your portal vein, they can do that procedure that I've talked about, which is the TIPS. And basically what they do is they go in there, like I said, they put a stent in there and they kind of open that up and they try to get that blood flow going back through there. And they divert some of the blood as well. So not all the blood is going through the liver anymore. It's going to other places. They're diverting some of that blood from going through the liver to alleviate that back pressure into the liver, which can help shrink those varices and relieve some of the pressure off those blood vessels, which can in turn prevent you from having the burst varices. Now, a TIPS procedure is not an overnight fix. It doesn't fix itself overnight. I had a TIPS procedure back in January of last year, which was unsuccessful, and I had another one in June that was successful. And I went and had a CAT scan done in October with contrast, and I still have the varices. Although they have shrunk a little bit, they're still there. Now, I do go back in April to have another CAT scan done with contrast, and they're going to take a look at that, and they're going to check the pressures and all that kind of stuff and make sure that there's still blood flow going through properly. But the hope is that those varices have shrunk even more when I go back and see them again, and we'll just have to wait and see what happens with that. But varices can be very scary, and it's very, very dangerous, and it's one of those things that there's not a lot of warning signs to, for you to know. It's just one of those kinds of things that, one day you're just kind of just moving along like any normal day, and next thing you know, you throw up and there's blood. And I can tell you another thing, and this isn't the most, this is kind of gross, but I'm just going to be completely honest with you. When I was in the hospital and I had all that blood, I was bleeding very, very bad internally. The second time that I got into the hospital, the blood was starting to get digested by my body. And I'm going to tell you something. Guys, I apologize that I'm talking about this, but I just want to be completely frank with you and be honest and let you know what to look for. But when my body was digesting that blood, I had really, really bad gas, and I kept passing gas during that period of time. I don't think your body likes digesting blood very much because I had extreme diarrhea. I could not control my bowels at all, and I kept using the bathroom in my bed. And it would just be 1 minute I was sitting there, and the next thing you know, I just went to the bathroom, and there was no control over it. But the one thing that I did notice One was that I had diarrhea and it was black. But two, the smell of that blood, I will never be able to forget the way that that smelled. And I know it's really gross, but I just want to be quite frank with you so that you know. And I don't really know how to put my finger on what it smelled like, but it didn't smell like a normal passing gas. It was really, really foul smelling, and very odd smelling as well. And I would say if you're passing gas and it smells like it's almost like rotting flesh, is what it smells like. If you're having that, you might really want to go get checked out, and especially if you're having that really foul smelling gas, and then if you're going to the bathroom and it's black. That's a sign of bleeding internally, and that's very, very scary. And please go get checked out if you're experiencing any of that stuff. There are things they can do. And like I said, they can give you a blood transfusion and they can start putting that blood back in until maybe the varices either stops bleeding, or they can go in there, like I said, they could put bands on those varices to make them stop as well. So there are things that they can do. But just ignoring it is not a good idea. It's just not a good idea. You really need to go to the hospital and check and have them check your hemoglobin, because your hemoglobin might be really, really low and you might not know it. And I could tell you that when that was happening to me, the exhaustion that I felt anytime that I've bled internally, and my hemoglobin is really low, I'm so tired that I can't even walk. So if you're experiencing like extreme fatigue, and like I said, you have really foul smelling gas and black tarry stools, or either you're throwing up black coffee grinds or vomiting blood, you really need to go get checked out, and please do so, because it could be it could be very life threatening. And like I said, there are things they could do for it, so please go and have that looked at. But with that said, I think that's pretty much it as far as varices is concerned. Like I said, there's not a lot of warning signs to let you know that that's about to happen. And at this point, I've had internal bleeding quite a few times, and it's very, very scary. And I just don't want to have to see any of you guys have to go through what I did. And please go to the hospital immediately if you are having any symptoms like that, because like I said, it can be either a life or death situation, and you just don't want to have to deal with that. But on the same token, it's one of those reasons. Another reason to not drink. And one of the problems is that if you have already damaged your liver to that point, depending on what's going on, if you've hit cirrhosis, then at that point, that's non-reversible. But fatty liver can be reversed, and the liver is a very resilient organ, and it's the only organ that we have that can rebuild itself. It regenerates, and our livers can heal themselves to a certain extent. And if you have not gotten past the point of no return, you can heal your liver. And one of the first things that you have to do in order to do so is by removing the alcohol from your life, in order to do that. And then, sticking to a strict diet, make sure you're not consuming too much sugar and things like that, or other things that you're going to need to do, and make sure you're not taking too many NSAIDs, acetaminophen, any over-the-counter pain medications can be really tough on the liver. But there's a lot of steps that you can take, which I'll talk about in another video here soon, about what we can do to help improve our livers, especially fatty liver. But like I said, once you get to that point of no return, it's not a death sentence by any means. You can continue to live, but once that scarring is already on your liver, it's there. But you can stop the scarring from continuing to get worse. And just because you have cirrhosis and liver disease doesn't mean that that's the end. You can continue to go on, and for quite some time, just depending. But the most important thing that you have to do is, one, remove the alcohol, and then just pay really close attention to those other things that I was talking about. But I'll make a video about that here very soon, and discuss all the things that you can do to help reduce fatty liver and kind of reverse that damage that's been done. But like I said, varices are very scary, and it's something that could be addressed, and it's something that they can. There are procedures that they can do to fix it. It's not, if you start throwing up blood, that's not it. Please go to your hospital and get checked. But I think that's it for today's video. I just wanted to talk about varices and what happens. What are some of the symptoms of it, and what can they do about it? And like I said, there are some medical procedures that can be done. So please get that checked out. But with that said, guys, that's it for today's video. I'm gonna go ahead and hop off of here. It's a really rainy day out there. It's kind of gross, but I'm just gonna hang out in the house today and just kind of rest. I got my procedure coming up in just a couple days, so I'm just trying to get some rest before that happens. Don't forget, guys, tomorrow at 12 o'clock is the live video. That'll be Eastern Standard Time. I'm really looking forward to that, and I hope to see as many of you as possible in tomorrow's video. It's an opportunity for you guys to ask me anything you want. Like I said before, I think it's pretty obvious what not to ask. But if it's a question I don't feel comfortable asking, I'll just say I'm not comfortable asking that. So, it's an open floor. You guys are, more than welcome to ask me anything you like. And, as I've said before, I like to keep my anonymity. I don't want to say my name for reasons that I'll disclose at some point, but I just would prefer to keep my name private for now. But and the exact location of where I live, but I do live in South Carolina, and I'll talk about what I'm comfortable discussing, and 99% of it I'm okay talking about. There's just going to be a little bit that I don't want to talk about, but like I said, you guys can can ask me whatever you'd like, and I really would like to see you guys in tomorrow's video. They're a lot of fun, and I'll just let it go for as long as it can, as long as it's there's still questions being asked and there's still a good group of people in there. I'll usually do a live for anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half, somewhere around there. But anyway, really looking forward to tomorrow's video. I hope to see as many of you there as possible. If you can't make it, I completely understand. Not everybody's got time to do so, but if you do have an opportunity to hop in there, you don't have to stick around the whole entire time. Hop in, hang out for a minute, ask some questions, and just get out of there if you'd like. You don't have to stay for the whole entire live video. You can come in there for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever you want to do. Ask your question and leave if you want. So with that said, guys, I'm going to go ahead and hop off of here for today. Guys, I love y'all so much. Thank you so much, everybody who has already hopped in there and purchased the merch. I really appreciate it. That really means a lot to me that you guys are that willing to help support this channel and do so. And thank you so much, everybody who's been in there and either donated to the Super Thanks, anybody who's donated on the Cash App. I apologize. I do not know how to get in there and say thank you in there. So there's 2 of you that have already donated on the Cash App. The link for the Cash App is in the description if you're interested. But for the 2 of you that have donated in the Cash App, thank you so much. I just don't know how to get in there and send a message. I have looked and looked. I cannot figure it out. And I don't know what your YouTube handle is. I'm not exactly sure how to get on there and tell you thank you. So I'm saying thank you here today, and I hope that you get this message. I did not ignore you. I just don't know how to get in there and tell you thank you and Cash App. I haven't really used it that much. So with that said, guys, I'm going to get off here for today. I love you all, and until tomorrow's live video, I will see y'all then. Y'all have a great day. Bye-bye.